Hello, welcome to Psych Chat here at Men's Radio Station. Today, our episode is all about the benefits of traveling to our mental health and well-being. I know all our holiday plans are in limbo, but we can still look forward to our holidays when all these are over. Today, I'm joined by Chloe Gosiewski. Chloe is a lifestyle coach, travel mentor, and a speaker. Chloe, thanks for joining me. And by the way, I hope I pronounced your name right.
You did, yes. Thank you so much.
Okay, so let's just kick off, Chloe, with your background. What I usually do here is I ask people to give us a snapshot of their trajectory in life. So you've been wearing many hats. You're a lifestyle coach, you're a travel mentor, and also you're a speaker. But how this all come into to place? What's the story behind all of these exciting roles?
Yeah, brilliant. Yeah, I am a life coach, more specifically around sort of happiness and wellness,
Hmm.
which it travels down obviously into one's lifestyle. I'm also a meditation teacher, so I can incorporate that in with my client work. Um, with travel mentoring, so I'm a keen traveler like yourself. I love traveling. And I am wholeheartedly believe that travel is a such a great way to open your mind, to heal yourself, to evolve. So I
Hmm.
try to incorporate that into what I do as well with people. My company is One Way Journey, which is a wellness platform which focuses on um, health, which is mind, body, and spirit. So the three sides of us that kind of need to be in balance for us to remain healthy and thrive.
Brilliant. These are really interesting background. I'm just wondering, has this always been something that you've always wanted to do as a child, or was it more like a product of self-reflection, or was there a turning point in your life that you decided to, um, I'll get on and become a life coach, a travel mentor, and all that?
Yeah, no, not at all. I wanted to be a pop star when I was a kid.
Okay.
So, basically my journey had started with travel. Prior to travel, I was in a pretty low place,
Mm-hmm.
and I went, and this was never. I didn't even know what a life coach was. And I went traveling, and I started this epic journey of self-discovery of myself, of the world, of other people, and it naturally everything that I have done since then has been a natural progression and evolution, really, from one situation springboard into the next.
Mm-hmm. Brilliant. Now, and another, we'll talk more of that later in the show.
Mm.
But the reason why I really got in touch with you is because I stumbled upon one of your TED Talk, and it's really
Ah.
a fascinating talk. It's called The Traveling Cat.
Mm.
So for anyone who's listening, just go to YouTube and type in traveling cat and you'll see Chloe's TED Talk is brilliant. But what I'm interested to find out, Chloe, is what was the inspiration behind that TED Talk?
So the inspiration, I guess, was well, the whole concept of TEDx is to share an idea.
Mm-hmm.
You have an opportunity to stand on the red dot and you talk about something that means something to you. And my idea and my passion and what meant something to me at that particular time was how travel
Mm-hmm.
had helped me to heal from a really dark, low place and brought me into a place where I'm happy
Mm-hmm.
fundamentally. And it took me on an incredible journey and my idea is that I want other people to know that if they feel the way that I felt, they could also go on their own journey like that and discover things for themselves. So that
Mm-hmm.
was the inspiration behind it.
Brilliant. And I know some of people who are listening, we've been having these episodes about lockdown, and actually, what I keep on telling is this is actually could be harnessed as an opportunity for us to reflect.
Mm.
Areas that we could improve on our life. And I think there's an important message that you touched upon there. You mentioned about happiness. And so I just want to explore what is actually your self definition of happiness, what comprises happiness.
Okay, so for me, there's, I suppose, happiness is there's two different types of happiness,
Mm-hmm.
and I think when you understand them both, it makes it a little bit easier to kind of understand what it is that you need as an individual. So you've got the
Mm-hmm.
happiness, which is the type of happiness which you get from something. So it would be, for example, I will be happy when I can go on holiday again. I will be happy when I can go back to work, or I will be happy when I do this. So it's a sense of achievement and fulfillment from getting something external.
Mm-hmm.
Um, there's another side of happiness, which is a state of within yourself, and that is a sense of peace and contentment and joy that
Mm-hmm.
you feel without actually having any input from anything externally. It's just you just feel a certain way about life, about you, about everything. So when you understand the two different sorts, you will know that sometimes it's the happiness that you emit yourself that you're lacking, and that's where you need to focus your attention on, because of course all of us are looking, especially at the moment, we're looking for forward to the future of things that we know that when lockdown is up, we're going to feel so much better
Mm-hmm.
when we can do all this stuff. But actually, this is a time for us, like you say, to be reflecting and finding that inner peace, that inner happiness.
Mm-hmm.
um so going forward, that we don't, we're not rushing back out into this false sense of security that we'll get from other things. But yeah, that to me is what happiness is. There's two different sides, and the one that I like to work on is the one that I can create myself.
Hmm. And that's such a lovely framework that you mentioned about happiness, getting back to a sense of normalcy, especially during the lockdown, and also finding fulfillment and contentment. And is this the kind of approach that you try to deliver with your wellness platform, One Way Journey? If you could just talk about that, is about your platform. What exactly is One Way Journey?
Yeah, so One Way Journey is, well, it started off as my travel blog, actually,
Hmm.
Dennis. Not for me to, become a travel blogger, but just to keep family and friends in the loop of what I was doing. It was going to save me time if everyone could just go to one place and see what I was up to. But actually, that journey ended up turning into something so much bigger than just me going traveling. And it's evolved into what it is, which has been a journey into finding out about myself, health, which is mind, body, and spirit. So, mind, we're talking about mental health, we're talking about ego, we're talking about mindset. So, those three things fall under the mind category. Body, that's obviously your physical health, your diet, your exercise, things like that. And then also we're talking about spiritual health, which is quite often overlooked, which is your sense of belonging to something that is bigger than yourself, which is where things like meditation and mindfulness really come into play. But the three of them together, you kind of need to have a balance of all three of them. And that's what One Way Journey is. It's just a platform of information where people can go, and if they can start their own journey in whatever way they feel they need to.
Brilliant. That's really like an all-encompassing kind of approach for your clients. And I'm just wondering, who do you usually work with? Do you usually work with adults, or do you also work with teens, or you work with people who are struggling with their mental health?
Yeah, so I work with predominantly adults,
Mm-hmm.
and my clients are mostly based here in the UK and America. Um, it's quite funny that the clients that come to me, they usually come to me with a reason, which ends up just being the tip of the iceberg. So somebody might come to me and say, I'm not happy with my career, for example, or I'm feeling down about this, or but actually when we start working together, we find out that there's a whole, another level, like more levels below. So it's quite nice because you never really know who I'm going to be working with and what the reason is, and that's something I have to be prepared for. But equally, my clients don't necessarily always know what it is that they're coming to me for. They know that they come into me, something's directing them to me, and that's part of the exciting journey that we go on together, is unveiling what that is, and what those needs are, because it will be different for everybody. But like I say, sometimes people don't know necessarily what that is, what
Hmm.
that core thing is, until we start working together.
Hmm. And do you usually deliver your sessions online, or you'd rather do it face to face?
I do it online. I don't object to doing it face to face, but like I say, I move around quite a lot, and also my clients are in different countries, so it's
Hmm.
easier for us all to do it online.
Hmm.
I mean, face to face work is great. If I am near somebody, then I'm more than happy to see them. But no, predominantly, which is working well, obviously. It means I haven't had to learn during lockdown how to do something different, because it is something that I've always done anyway. And I do
Hmm.
appreciate a lot of people are having to relearn their craft online, which has been really difficult. But for me, that's something that I have always done.
Hmm. And I think you mentioned something about, you recrafting the way you do things. And
Mm,
I think I was talking with my husband the other day, and we were saying that after this lockdown, I think we're not really going to be back to normal. We'll still, kind of hang on to, lockdown and just doing things online. But anyway, it's good that you're actually doing this online, because, that
mm,
means you can actually reach to people who need more of your the services and the approaches that you offer.
yeah,
Now,
yeah.
um, when I was watching your TED talk, and I've actually learned a lot about you, and especially your passion about travel. And then you
Mm,
mentioned that you've been to a number of countries in South America, and that's really
mm,
fascinating. I don't know a lot of people who've been to South American countries, because they tend to have a reputation that they kind of, how do I say this? They're not really safe place to visit, shall we say,
yeah.
better words. So tell us about your travel experience in South America.
Yeah, so it hadn't actually dawned on me about safety before I went. I had watched, you've seen in the TED Talk, I watched Prison Break, and season 3 was set in Panama, and I saw it and I was like, I'm going to go to Panama. I knew nothing about Panama.
Hmm.
But here's where kind of, your visualization comes into place. For such a long time, I was adamant that I was going to Panama, that all of a sudden I got to the point where I went to Panama. And I was supposed to stay there for 6 months, and I ended up working my way up to Mexico, and then flying down to Colombia. And the whole time, if I'm honest with you, it hadn't even dawned on me about
Hmm.
any risks.
Hmm.
I think not that I was unaware. Of course, even in this country, I'm aware that, as a woman, if I'm walking around at night on my own, then I'm obviously putting myself at risk to some degree. um but when you're actually your feet on the ground, and you're talking to the locals, and you're meeting the people, like it's just, people are nice, people are kind, and
Hmm.
they want to help you. So of course you've got some people that have bad behaviors, but for the most, everybody's really, really nice. So I had a great time.
Hmm. Which country have you been to?
So I started in Panama, and then I flew to Costa Rica, and then changed and went to, so from there I went to Nicaragua, and I went all around Nicaragua. I crossed over into Honduras,
Hmm.
and then I went to Utila and done my advanced diving in Utila, and spent a couple of weeks there. And then I went over to Guatemala, Belize, Mexico. Mexico is a huge country. I couldn't get all around it in 6 weeks.
Hmm.
And then I flew down to Colombia, and then I came back to Panama. So, and I did that over the course of 6 months.
Hmm. Hmm. I like how you say Nicaragua, just the way you roll your R. So how
Well,
about Spanish?
it's funny that you should say that, actually,
Yeah,
because when I first went there, I was calling it Nicaragua, and
yeah, that's
everyone would
how we
laugh at
expect.
me. So I had to learn.
Yeah. So how was your Spanish?
Oh, not very good. I went to Spanish school in Panama for a month to try and learn, and I mean, I found that when I was there, I was getting better at it because I was
Mhm.
using it every day. But here's the thing with Spanish, and it's probably, I kind of get how you must feel with different accents with English, because I would be in like Mexico, for example, and then you fly down to Colombia, and it's like a completely different language because the accent is so different.
Mhm.
So for me, it was quite tough. You'd just start learning, and then you'd move to another country, and you'd have to, pick up a whole new dialect and a whole. It wasn't a new language, obviously, but it felt like that to me. But I think you learn as you go, and you pick up from people, which is nice.
Yeah, I understand that. You actually remind me, because I came here in the UK in 2013, and my preconceived notion of the British accent is the RP, the one that you usually hear from the BBC, because coming from the Philippines, that's my only access to British accent. But when I came here, I was living with a woman from Scotland, and she's from Glasgow, and so sometimes I really struggle to understand her, and I think she also struggles to understand me. But she's really a nice woman.
Yeah.
But anyway,
yeah.
I could really understand, like the difference in accent and how it gives the impression that it's a different language. But let's go back to your travel experience. It really kinds of, it feels that you really had a life-changing moment during your travel. So if you could just share to us how your travel changed your outlook in life.
Yeah, there's been there's many stories I could tell, and in fact I love talking about it. All my different stories. So there's a story, for example, when I was in Mexico City. It was so busy. I was waiting. I'd got up early in the morning because I was going to see some ruins, some ancient in the ancient pyramid city. So it's about 30 miles northeast of Mexico City. And I was up really early. I'd gone and got myself a coffee, and I was waiting at the bus stop for my tour bus to come and get me. Back then, I actually used to smoke. I don't smoke anymore. I've stopped. This will kind of lead you to why, but I was smoking my cigarette, and I drank this bit of this coffee, and I was like, oh, it's disgusting. So I chucked this cigarette butt into the coffee and chucked it in the bin. It was a full coffee, really, it was still warm. Put the cigarette butt and put it in the bin, and then I got on the bus and I sat there, and then I watched as this homeless man had walked by with no shoes. He had this little carrier bag, and he was digging through the bin, and I saw his face light up when he pulled out this warm coffee. It was almost like he'd won the lottery, that he'd got this warm coffee. And I watched him open the lid, and I saw his face drop as he saw my cigarette butt in there. He then just scooped it out and then carried on drinking it. And at first I was really disgusted by the whole thing. I thought, I can't believe he's done that. And then the disgust turned at myself. I thought, how ungrateful. I was like, I've just thought that coffee was absolute crap, so I've just chucked it in the bin and put a cigarette butt in it, when there's somebody else out there that is like literally is thinking that this is the best day that they've probably had in a long time, that they can get a warm coffee. And it was so many different situations like that happened when I was away, that made me realize how trivial not my problems are, because I don't think anyone's problems are trivial, but I think sometimes we look at our life and are longing for something more, that we forget to actually acknowledge what we've already got that's good in our life. And so for me, like I say, there's many different times as I'm going along and I'm meeting people that seemingly have nothing, they're local people, but they're so happy, and they'll give you anything that they've got. They'll give you their last of something, because and that questions it for you. Then you start to think, well, how are they happy when they've got nothing? I've got all this great stuff. I had a 2-bedroom flat, I had a good job, I had a car, I had a big group of friends, I was partying all the time. Like I should have been happy, right? That's all the stuff that I had, all the stuff that everyone says you should have. And then there's somebody there that's a little boy running around with no shoes on, having the best time ever, just like loving everybody, smiling, happy as Larry. And there I am, stood there thinking, hang on a minute, I don't understand now. What is happiness? Like what is a good health? Because I'm starting to think that I don't really know the answer to that. And then a journey starts.
That is really a heartwarming story, you really realize that when you travel, that there are different cultures and there are really different life experiences, and that kinds of really put perspectives on how you see life. And it actually reminds me of my childhood in essence, because I grew up in a slum in the Philippines, so my life is really growing up is really different from my life here. Um, and I always, at one point I brought my husband to Philippines to see the place that I grew up with, but I did not take him to the slum because he doesn't want to go there. But he kind of have an idea of my childhood. And I always say that there are some things that you're not grateful about, but if you live in this country, if this is where you spend your childhood, especially in the slum, you tend to realize that there are far more important things in life. And I think that's actually kind of the realization that you've experienced with your travel. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I also want to explore about the loss of traveling. Of course, traveling is not all about holiday or meeting new
No.
people. There are also some negative aspects about traveling. So if you could just talk us through about the loss of traveling.
There is lows in everything you do, and we call it lows, but they're challenges really. You will face challenges all the time, and this is something that I've always had a little bit of a not a gripe or anything, but it's always concerned me with travel influencers that paint a picture of travel looking a particular way, when actually there are a lot of struggles and challenges that you go through, but they are kind of what makes you and helps you to build. And I travelled alone, so quite often I would find myself having to, for the first time in my life, having to deal with problems by myself. And all of a sudden I realised, oh my gosh, I can actually do, figure more stuff out than what I ever had before. You would come across things like where you might, for example, we got stranded on an island in Ometepe because of high winds, so the ferries weren't leaving. It was okay for me. I'd left, I didn't have anywhere to be. I was just like mooching my way through life. This guy, however, had a flight booked back to the USA from the mainland, so and that was the following day. Now, he was then trapped on the island for 24 hours, which meant he missed his connecting flight that would have taken him home. Like, things happen all the time throughout your life, like things crop up, and it's the way when you're traveling you kind of learn a new way to deal with those problems. Like, when you're back home you might be like, oh, everything's going wrong, oh, I've got to go and rant to someone about it, this is it, and you get yourself stuck in this like cognitive mode of like thinking a certain way, and why does this always happen to me, whereas when you're traveling you're like, oh crap, I've got to do something about this. And your mindset is completely different. It's completely different because you know that it is a problem that you have to sort out, and you just get on with it. And there are a community of people that, local people, other travelers, people do like really, really want to help you, which is amazing. But for the most part of it, you have to figure stuff out yourself. And I think that is where you start to understand that challenges are actually not as big and not as problematic as what they seem like when you're at home. I don't know what it is about that, but I mean, some questions are just left unanswered really, but for some reason it does. Yeah, those challenges, they're good. They're like, you'll have them, but they're good.
Yeah, I understand what you mean, because at one point when I was in my 20s, I was also a solo traveler. I've been traveling to Thailand, Vietnam, Cambodia, Myanmar when I was in my 20s, and you're really kind of surprised like how you could actually be more resourceful, and how you could be inventive when trying to navigate a foreign country, and that really, as you've said, brings out the best in you. I want to ask you, Chloe, what's your favorite country to visit so far?
Oh, I knew you were going to ask that. That's the question that I ask people as well. It's such a tough question to answer because I've been thinking about it quite a lot recently of my favorite country, and I have favorite places in countries. But if I'm going to look at a country as a whole, I would say I really loved Guatemala. I don't know if it's because of the group of people that I was with, or it's the fact that the local people are so kind, or I don't know what it is, but I had this really good vibe when I was there.
Yeah. That's really something on my list. I've never been to South America, so that's always where I wanted to go. And Guatemala really kinds of has a what you call that, like a tourist vibe. Now I would say like it's because it's not really touristy, it's not popular destination, so it's kind of like really appeals to me. I really love to go to Guatemala. But on that subject, I've actually made some I prepared some interesting statistics about traveling, and I found this on finder.com. And here are the top travel destinations from the UK. Of course, as expected, number one is Spain, and
Yeah.
then France, Italy, US, Ireland, Portugal, Germany, Netherlands, and Poland. So, and then
Oh,
of course
Europe.
Greece. Yeah, most of people in this country, they tend to go to Europe, obviously because it's a lot closer and there's a similarity in culture. But or I really like the places where you've been because not a lot of people from this country go there, and it's really, it's really different culture, different people, different language, different food, and yeah, if I just have the money, because I think it's quite expensive to go to South America, the flight and all that, and the hotel. But I'd love to go there definitely.
Yeah.
And I'll just share another statistics that I found is also from finder.com. They found out that in 2018, 48 billion pounds were spent in total by tourists from the UK, and that's 6% more than 2018. And but I don't know how will that compare to this year, but it'll be interesting to
Yeah.
check that out. And then it also says that 9.8 nights are spent abroad by the average UK resident in 2019. So, Chloe, I'm just interested to find out how long have you been gallivanting in South America?
So I spent 6 months
Mm,
in Central America. I then came back and I did 6 weeks in. I did some Poland and Czech Republic. And then so now when I go, what I quite like to do is if I'm working or I'm busy, I will go as far as to just do a weekend somewhere rather
mhm,
than going out drinking or going out for meals or stuff in this
mm,
country. I'll book myself a flight and I'll go somewhere for, for a weekend but yeah, I think 6 months was a good amount of time for me to go to really kind of get some change in my life.
mhm,
Um, but if you really want to see a country, last year we did for my birthday, me and a friend went to um, Bosnia and Herzegovina,
mhm,
Montenegro, and Croatia, and I think that was like just over 2 weeks, and
mhm,
that was way too quick. Like to do that many countries and that many places, you didn't really get to have a feel of it. So I would say if you want to go somewhere, like really spend some time in a place and get to know it. Yeah.
mhm. So you're not really the kind of person that would book a travel package, like they'll book you on a tour. You're not that kind of traveler.
I used to be,
Mhm,
not anymore, but that's it's not that to say that I never would be that person. And if I'm honest with you, I think a lot of people are changing their mind about that kind of holiday. Like
mhm,
people are starting to want more. Like travel wellness is,
mhm,
well, prior to coronavirus, it was predicted to be um, a huge thing in 2020,
mhm,
travel wellness, because people are looking to do something more than just a holiday sitting by a pool. They want to do things like retreats. They want
mhm,
to do things like adventure holidays or, something slightly different with that's what they want. So I don't think I'm the only one who is a little bit like, oh, I don't really want to just spend a week in Malia getting drunk. Do you know what I mean? I think,
mhm,
or anything like that. I think people are in general wanting something more from their travel. And I love that. I think that's great. I'm all on
mhm,
board.
mhm. That exactly ties in with what you said, because what we're traveling to improve mental health, to improve our well-being. So
Mm,
yeah, it really makes sense that when you have the chance, when you go to another country, take it as an opportunity to recharge yourself and do a bit of self-reflection.
yeah.
Now, Chloe, I would, because you've been an experienced traveler. I just want to ask, what are your tips in surviving the journey?
So do you mean like the hopping from place to place?
Yeah.
Ladies, don't pack too many shoes. They're really heavy. So they're in regards of like packing your stuff. I took, as I said, I was supposed to actually just stay in Panama for 6 months. That was originally what I was planning on doing, and I had a massive suitcase, which I ended up ditching. I didn't ditch it as such. I left it in the hostel that I stayed at in Panama, and they put it in their storage cupboard for me. So I bought a backpack and I put my suitcase in there, and off I went. But I had way too much stuff. I had a really big backpack and I had unnecessary things. So I'd say, for first of all, tip, is it really necessary that you have it? If it's not, don't bother taking it, because I had so much stuff that I didn't need and I didn't use. And this is where that element comes in of you thinking about all the stuff that you have at home. Like, I was surviving. All I had was the stuff that was in my backpack, and I was happy. Like, I didn't need more than what I had. Like, I got on this incredible adventure, meeting different people, seeing different places, and I didn't have very much stuff at all. And actually, as I was going along, I was chucking stuff or giving it away to people as I was going along, because you don't need, there's literally, to have a good time in life and to just survive, you just need very, very basic things. You need food, you need water, you need some clothes on your back, and a pair of shoes, comfortable shoes on your feet. And that's pretty much all you really need.
Yeah.
And the rest of the stuff.
Yeah, it's a perfect, metaphor for life. Just go back to the basics. Don't overcomplicate it. Don't think about, like, when I'm brushing my teeth, is this the best brand of toothpaste? Just clean your teeth. Or I like the idea. Just go back to the basics, and that's really something, I suppose, that you learn when you're a backpacker, when you're a solo traveler. But Chloe, some people don't really, they always want to embark on a solo travel. They always dream of being a backpacker. So could you just mention some mistakes that first-time traveler are likely to make? You mentioned that so some people would tend to overpack. Other than that, what other mistakes people tend to do?
Yeah, so if you're this isn't just if you're traveling on your own, this is if you're traveling with other people. Alcohol, if you drink too much, these are a given. These things, like, if you're gonna drink too much, you're putting yourself in a really vulnerable position, and that's home or away. And you have to remember that when you're far away, if you're by yourself or with a group of people and everybody's getting drunk, if you don't know what's going on around you, you're leaving yourself open to being mugged or having a really bad accident. There's so many different things, and what you have to remember is, if there's somebody out there, quite a lot of the things, when I was out there backpacking, I'd hear some real horror stories, and I started to realize that the horror stories that I was hearing always started with these things. I was drunk on my own, I was walking down the beach at night on my own, and I was out looking for drugs. Those three things I constantly would hear all the time, and you would know then, okay, if you're going to be doing those things, then the chances are you're going to get yourself into a bit of trouble, because you're putting yourself in a situation where that could actually happen. So don't drink too much, just be aware of what you're doing. I mean, I always say to people, don't worry about the outcome, because you don't know what's going to happen. Like, expectations are a terrible thing sometimes, because you're putting you're saying, I want something to be this particular way, and of course, if it doesn't happen that way, it's a disappointment. So just keep your wits about you, but at the same time, just go with the flow, and like, don't worry about everything going to plan as such, because there would be so many times when I would just wake up one day and I'd be like, I'm going to this place, and then somebody else would say to me, oh, we're all off here, and I'd be, oh, okay. Literally, like that, at the drop of the hat, my plans had changed and I'd gone in a completely different direction. And like, that's how it should be. Like, that's how life should be. Like, adapt and change and flow as life changes and as new opportunities arise. Like, don't be so fixated on sticking to what you originally planned.
Exactly. I love that message, be spontaneous, enjoy your life, and just learn how to adapt. Now,
Mm.
Chloe, I just want to talk about, because you briefly mentioned earlier that you also had a podcast and you also used to run a blog. So if you could just
Mm.
talk us through about your podcast, if a hostel could talk, and I suppose you're still doing this podcast.
Yeah, so well actually the One Way Journey podcast season 1 was If a Hostel Could Talk,
Hmm.
which was all about like travelers that have been traveling and talking about their experiences and how it's changed them and impacted their life. Now, everybody's got a completely different story to tell. Of course they have, but their underlying experiences, it was becoming apparent, was very much the same. Like we were all having this incredible life-changing experience and we could actually see it happening, which is amazing. And then season 2 is called the Happy Hour, 7 days of happiness. So it was just 7 days of talking about happiness. So because with One Way Journey, it encompasses mind, body, and soul. And I state heavily that for spiritual health, travel is a great way to connect to that part of the spiritual health, which is being part of something that is bigger than you, belonging to
Hmm.
something that is more than just yourself, which you learn through travel. So I want to, that's why I incorporate travel into it, because I think it's such a huge part of that transition. So the podcast, yeah, the episode, the season 1 is all about travel, and there's and different travel stories, and then the second one is about happiness. So who knows where we're going to go with season 3.
Yeah, and of course, that's how we met. I was a guest at your podcast, If a
You
Hostel
were.
Could Talk, and I shared my travel experience. Yeah,
You
it's pretty
did.
much the same, experience as you had, yeah, when I was on my 20s. How it, really affect my outlook in life. So if
Mm.
you are interested about listening to, a collection of people's experiences, brought about by traveling, head over to Chloe's podcast. It's called If a Hostel Could Talk. I suppose it's available on Apple Podcasts or on Spotify.
Yeah, it's on Spotify, iTunes, TuneIn app.
Mhm.
It's on the One Way Journey website. So
Mm.
if you Google it, it will come up, I'm sure.
Okay, brilliant. And now, do you have any? Do you listen to other travel podcasts or do you read travel blogs? Because I run a mental health website and I kind of
Mm.
get some inspiration to other big psychology websites. So is it the same thing for you? Do you have some inspiration for travel podcasts and travel blogs?
No, I don't. Not consistently. So there's not
Mhm.
something that I would go to like the same one all the time.
Mhm.
Um, I don't know if you know this about me, Dennis, but I'm a huge Google fan. I
Mhm.
Google everything,
Mhm.
like literally everything I will Google. So I just go straight onto Google and I'll put something in, and then I
Mhm.
will trial through multiple different blogs.
Mhm.
But I don't, there isn't one, that I would say is that's one I go specifically to every
Mhm.
time, because I think that there's a variety, and I like to kind of search through lots of different ones to get different voices on things, on places that I go to. Um, but yeah, that's not to say that I wouldn't, I do probably follow people on Instagram, etc. But
Mhm.
that's a completely different platform. You can't get an awful lot of information like you can on a blog,
Mhm. Mhm.
really. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, I understand what you mean. Anyway, we'll move on to the next segment. So, this time, Chloe, we've been talking about your background. We've been talking about your platform, which is an excellent platform. We've been also talking about your podcast. So, I just want to explore more about some tips that you could share to us. Especially, promoting wellness, promoting, self-growth and feeling good about yourself. And you mentioned something, about Googling, and I actually happened to Google you last night, and I
Mm,
found out that you have an obsession with dogs. So,
I do.
talk us about that. Thanks to Google, I found out about it. Yeah.
Oh no, yeah, you got to watch what happens on Google, because once it's there, it never goes. But I am, yes, I
No,
do
that's
have
not
a.
true. No, that's not true. Before you answer my question about obsession with dogs, let me correct you there, because at one point there was a rather shall we say, not really favorable information about me on Google. Obviously, I won't share what it is, but if you actually send an email to Google, and if you've got really a strong case that really it affects your reputation and your business, you can ask them to take it down. And I also
Right.
met someone. He's a university lecturer, and he went to this country, which is, they've got a different culture, and if they found this certain information on him, it will actually affect his safety when he visits that
Oh.
country. So you could actually request that on Google. Look, Google
Oh.
is a good source of information. So
Mm.
you have to Google yourself. It's not about being narcissistic, but if you find something that really affects your business and your
Yeah.
safety, you could ask them to take it down. But anyway, let's go back to obsession
My
with dog,
dogs.
courtesy of
My dogs.
Google.
I do. I love dogs so much. I think I'm not really sure where it stems from. We've obviously always had dogs, but I am the sort of person who I will cross the street to stroke a dog. Like some people think it's weird. I'm like I think it's completely normal. But yeah, I'm a massive massive dog lover, and that was something that I found incredibly heartbreaking while I was traveling was the street dogs. Now we've got unfortunately we just lost one of our street dogs last week, but we had three that we brought back from Turkey. Of course, when you go traveling, you can't just bring back dogs, and there's very little you can do apart from feed them and give them some like love and attention. And for me, I just found that was a huge challenge for me because I would find myself sobbing quite a lot because there was nothing I could do to kind of ease their pain, if you know what I mean.
Mhm.
I could feed them and I could cuddle them and I could give them water, but how long could I do that for? As soon as I leave, what's going to happen to them? It's really tough. But yes, I love dogs.
Yeah. And what dog breed do you have?
Well, we don't really know. They are the three dogs. Well, sorry, I keep saying three. We've only got two now.
Yeah.
They're Turkish street dogs. Now we know that they've got Kangal in them, but that's it. I
Ah,
don't know what because they're mixed breeds, but they're all big dogs and they are so lovely.
mhm.
Considering they were from the street and they had no training whatsoever, they are the most well-behaved dogs. They don't do anything apart from one of them keeps digging up my garden, my my plants my veggies that I'm growing. So
Yeah, let's talk about that. Gardening. So is that something that also kinds of recharge you?
oh, I love it.
Mhm,
I'm new to it. I started last year
mhm,
gardening. So basically one of my lifelong dreams is I've always said I wanted to build my own house, um, grow my own fruit and vegetables and be self-sufficient. And
mhm.
I started thinking to myself last year, I thought, right, what can I start doing now to kind of get me to that place where I can live that life? And I thought, well, I suppose the first thing is I better start learning how to grow fruit and veg if I'm going to
Mhm.
be this self-sufficient queen. So I started last
Self-sufficient queen.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So I started doing the growing a few little bits last year, and I absolutely loved it. So this year I've gone all out because we're in lockdown. I thought,
Mm,
well, it's a perfect time, really. So I've dug up all the garden. I've got a full-on allotment going on out there,
mm,
and I think being outside is a great thing. If you can't get outside, have them on your windowsill because that's still it's still bringing the outside inside, so which is really good. And getting your hands dirty in soil. I know some people are like, oh, I don't want to get my hands dirty, but actually, there is something really therapeutic in connecting with earth, like
mm.
really connecting with it. So I've just found throughout this whole isolation period and this lockdown that it's given me a purpose every day to be caring for something and nurturing something. I've been watching it grow, which has been making me feel immensely proud. And at the end of it, I'm going to have some healthy food to eat. So hopefully.
Yeah, exactly. You don't have to queue to Tesco for
I know.
you already have your tomatoes, you have your potato, but I don't know if
Yeah.
it's the right time of year to grow potato. But anyway,
Mm.
so you have your dogs to keep you company, you have your garden. What else kinds of promotes your well-being? Is there a special book that you kind of, read all the time?
I tell you what is a good book.
Mm.
Now I don't know if you've read this or not. Have you read The Alchemist, Dennis?
I've heard of it by
Oh, you need
Paulo
to.
Coelho.
Yes,
Yeah.
you need to, because you've traveled, so you get this. You
Hmm.
will know this when you read it. It is it's a fiction, a work of fiction,
Hmm.
but it's about a shepherd boy who goes on he basically goes traveling to look for his treasure.
Hmm.
And it kind of, when I read it, it really reminded me of my own journey that I went on, and I just related so much with it. That
Hmm.
I just think it's incredible. I have got because I do quite like reading.
Hmm.
I've got. Do you know Eckhart Tolle?
No.
He's got a book. So he's got quite a few books actually. And he talks very much about ego.
Hmm.
And so I'm reading one of his books called The Power of Now,
Hmm.
and it's so insightful when it talks about ego, what it is, and you just start reading it, and all of a sudden you start thinking to yourself. And this has been another really good tip actually of how he talks about ego and our attachment to it. It kind of really helps you to process things that are going on around you. Sometimes you can
Hmm.
something actually, is this really a problem, or is this just my ego reacting to it? Like,
Hmm.
is this my ego reacting to somebody else's ego, or is this actually what's happening? And it's really powerful stuff, so I would definitely recommend that.
I
The
love
Power of Now.
that because sometimes when we interact with people, it's not really worth arguing with them. But I like that. I like that what the book is saying. Maybe
Yeah,
it's your ego. Maybe it's not really worth arguing about. But anyway,
yeah.
I'll try to buy those books that you've recommended, because right now
Mm.
all the books that I'm reading are just really more into politics. Yeah.
Oh no,
Yeah,
no,
I
no.
know.
That is not going to make you happy.
No, I'm reading because there's a political pundit called Douglas Murray, and I really love this guy. I'm reading his. I've actually read his two books. He simply talks about politics within Europe. And yeah, my husband sometimes asks me like, you're into mental health and well-being, but if you look up my books, it's mainly all about politics, because I also tend to be very political. But anyway, go
Yeah.
back to you, Chloe.
Well,
Um,
actually, saying that, I used to, before, prior to like my travel days, because I've now kind of split my life into two. I'm now pre-travel and like after travel. So like
mhm,
my pre-travel days, I used to be so into politics, and I'd talk about it all the time, and I could tell that I was winding people up, and other people were winding me up if they didn't think what I thought. And I
yeah,
used to talk
yeah,
about it a lot. And and conspiracies, that is another thing. I was always watching different documentaries about conspiracy
that
theories. And
David like.
yeah, and honest to God, on this, I promise you this, my life has been so much more stress-free and happier since I've stopped like getting myself wound up about, politics and
Yeah.
conspiracies. Like, honestly, like, I think it's good I keep myself so that I know what our government is saying, but
Hmm.
the rest of the drivel that comes out of like media sources and things, like, I don't want to get involved in it because I feel like it really upsets me.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the key thing here is that we're talking about well-being tips here.
Mm,
You have to find a balance. You just
yeah.
don't have to feed your obsession about politics and
Mm,
all that. And just with this lockdown, I really make it a habit to watch the 6 o'clock news. But for the
yes.
past month, I really asked my husband if he could just switch off the telly
Right.
during news time, because like if you're hearing all this death toll, and I'm not trying to diminish the
No,
seriousness of this, it just really gets onto you that like, am I going to die? Am I like,
it does.
I'm just trying to get the basics, and then after that I just want to switch off. I really don't want to watch news at this time, and like what you've said, it's all about trying to be balanced about it. Yeah.
Yeah.
um, um
Yeah.
and it's not really good for your well-being, for your mental health, like what you've said.
It's not
Mhm,
at all. And this is the thing. If we're all in lockdown at the moment and we're staying home, um, if we are watching the news and we're constantly seeing all of this that's going on, what's happening is our mental health is taking a massive bashing and we're already locked in and we can't get away from it. So
mhm,
actually, if people are saying, you should be being aware of what's going on,
mhm,
actually, no, you should be staying home and focusing on yourself and doing
mhm,
whatever you need to keep yourself above water. And so that when we can all venture out again, you're not going to be in a really helpless place,
mhm,
or you're not going to be out there catching it and being in that same position. So it is, you're right, it's about a balance. If it's bringing you down, which it likely is if it's every single day in your face, you need
mhm.
to do something like go and stick your hand in the mud in the garden or something. Do you know what I mean? Do something that's very physical and in this now that you can do something about.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the reason why I actually invited you to this. I know it's a bit off, like everyone talking about coronavirus, but I suppose the kind of message that I want the listeners to take away is that, after this, there's still an opportunity for us to travel. There's still an opportunity for us to, discover something good about life. And of course, we have to take this seriously. We have to take the lockdown measure, but it's not all about doom and gloom, like what you've said. Now, Chloe, we're already nearing towards the last part of this episode. But there's one thing that I always ask my guests: what's one thing about mental health that we should talk more about that we don't often hear?
Um, I think, well, mental health is, in my opinion, well, to my knowledge,
Mm-hmm.
is interconnected, as I've said previously, with our physical and spiritual health. And I think um, they kind of continuously all overlap each other and impact each other. I think now we talk a lot about mental health, but we're labeling it. So we're talking, depression, anxiety, stress. What can we do for these each individual things? When actually, I think we should be looking at our mind health as a whole, which includes, by the way, the others. So I think when we're talking about mental health and how we can improve our mental health, I think what we need to be talking about and taking into consideration is a holistic approach. Um, and just to consider that actually, if your mental health is suffering, then it could well be because, or there could be something else out of balance with your physical or your spiritual health as well. And I think it's starting to talk about mental health, but collectively as a much larger holistic practice, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because I think it's really, I think the fact that people are talking about mental health is brilliant because now it's not a stigma, or I think in some countries it is, but I think very much in the UK now it's people are more open to talking about it. But at the same time, if you just talk about something and not actually react, like proactively do anything to fix it, you're not solving it. So yes, it's great that we're talking about mental health, but now what can we do? And I believe that it is a more of a holistic looking at our mind, body, and spiritual selves, and
Mm-hmm.
collectively looking at our wellness that way.
Yeah, and that's exactly the kind of approach, the kind of framework that you work on with your company. So
Exactly.
Chloe, could you just tell us what's on the pipeline for your blog, for your podcast, and for your wellness platform?
Yeah, so we well, everything's kind of a little bit up in the air as with
Mm-hmm.
everybody's is at the moment, and we're just kind of taking as it comes. We have got a retreat which is booked for in Malta in October. Of
Mm-hmm.
course, at the moment it's looking a little bit like, is that going to go ahead? Um, when this first happened, I was getting myself very worked up about it, and I was like, "Is this not going to happen? This has been a dream of mine." But actually, now I've kind of let go of that, and I'm like, "Well, if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, we'll just look at doing it again at another time." But so hopefully, in October, we're going to have a lovely retreat going, a relaxation and meditation retreat going in Malta. If not, doesn't matter. We will look at doing something different instead. And then I've been working with professionals from different areas. So it's not just my voice you'll see on the One Way Journey platform. It's other people who are experts in their field. Of course, I'm only an expert in one small part of what I do. So I actually seek help from other professionals who will give their insight into various parts of mind, body, and spirit, etc. So on the website you will see different voices, hear different voices, and get different information. So I suppose it's a case of continuing that throughout the summer and directing it to help people, really, as a place people can go, because you can have sessions with me as paid sessions as your coach, but ultimately what One Way Journey is it's a free platform of information. We've got a free happiness course on there that people can do. You don't have to sign up with your email, you just log in and out as and when you want to. So yeah, it's just about making sure that we continue to put all that information out there so that if people do want it, that they can easily find it. So yeah.
Yes, people just can look it up on Google or whatever search engine they use. So it's One Way Journey by Chloe Gosiewski. Now, Chloe, where can we learn more about you? Are you active on social media? Which platforms can we find more about you?
Yeah, I am. So, but I wouldn't say I'm particularly all that active apart from on my personal Facebook account, because I think myself personally, I can get a little bit dragged into social media all the time, and building up followers and things like that. And so I am on Twitter, just Chloe Gosiewski on Twitter, but I'm I'm not great on Twitter because I talk a lot and I write a lot, and Twitter doesn't give me enough characters. So I'll start typing something and I just can't find a way to shorten it into something so little and tiny that I just give up in the end.
Yeah.
But I'm on there.
Yeah. So Facebook is more like your thing.
Yeah, it is. I think that's because it's what I started on. So we have got One Way Journey, the One Way Journey page on Facebook. So if you just put One Way Journey in, you'll find it. And what we have been doing throughout lockdown is on a Sunday evening, we've been doing quiz nights for people to join in. Just if you want something to do, we've been putting on a quiz, and every there isn't like set dates for this, but I do interview other people. So we had like a live cooking demo. We had a Reiki healer and EFT practitioner. She did a live EFT demo that people could follow on with. Next week we're talking to an essential oils expert to talk about what essential oils you can use during lockdown to help you with anxiety, etc. So that if you want to know more, gain some stuff from there, then One Way Journey Facebook page is probably the best place to find that.
Okay, brilliant. So for those of you who are into wellness and improving your well-being, not just through traveling, but a whole variety of things, just go to Facebook and visit One Way Journey. And I just didn't realize that, flying too fast, we've been talking a lot about mental health and well-being, and of course, the benefits that we can get from traveling. It's really been lovely talking to you, Chloe.
Thank you.
Yeah. And I found this because I always finish my episode with a quote, and I just found this really insightful quote, and I just want to share this to all of you. I got this from Gustav Flaubert. He says that travel makes one modest. You see what a tiny place you occupy in the world. And that actually reminds me of, the anecdote that you shared earlier about the coffee with the cigarette butt. And I think that's one of the key takeaway about traveling. You just realize that, you're just small in this vast space. And thank you for sharing your insights, your experience, and of course your excellent wellness platform, Chloe. It's really been a fascinating episode with you. Now, I just want to take the last 2 minutes to remind you that my book still, of course, available. It's on Amazon. Just type in my name, Dennis Relojo-Howell, and you'll find my book. Let's Talk About Behavior is available. So it's a collection of essays that I wrote about relating to, of course, psychology, mental health, and well-being. And just like Chloe, I also run my own platform. As my regular listeners would know, I'm the founder of the website called Psych. So of course, anything about psychology, mental health, and well-being is there. I also run a podcast, and I also organize event, just like Chloe. But it's not as exciting event as what Chloe has, because Chloe's event is more about retreat. Mine is about conference. It's all about lectures. But yeah, it's been affected now because of the lockdown. But we'll update you about that. Now, for those of you who missed this episode, this will be uploaded on SoundCloud and, of course, on Men's Radio Station. So again, that's www.mensradiostation.com. Thank you. Have a good day.